been some time since my last video. Since then, I've continued to tweak and tune my arcade cabinet in all sorts of little ways, so I figured I'd bund it all up into a single video for you. If you've got your own HyperSpin-based arcade cabinet, maybe you'll pick up some tips and tricks. And if not, well, like a model railroad or a really good Minecraft build, I just feel this burning need to show my work. Today, we're going to be discussing 4 things. First, we've got an improvement on my old nested HyperSpin system, which allows for a simpler user interface and a splash screen to cover up your loading times. This will be very technical. If you want to skip over it, I've got links in the description below. Second, I've got updates to my PC Game Spreadsheet that'll help you decide what games you want to put on your cabinet. We're headed into Steam sale territory yet again, and it's best not to go in unprepared. Third, a personal project of mine to add a tiny second monitor that displays control schemes. It's really goofy, and I doubt anybody else would do this, but the effect is nice. Finally, I'd like to discuss my plans to stream my arcade experience over Twitch TV. I've had a few successful test streams, and I think I'm ready to make this a regular thing. Oh, and if you're wondering where the little Miitomo artwork went that I was using in past videos, come on, it's Miitomo. That was hot for maybe like a month before dying out. Hopefully I can make up for it with other silly pictures. Like this next one, for instance. I'd like to give my thanks up front to Christopher Shaw, another HyperSpin hobbyist. He figured out 2 features which help smooth out the experience considerably. A way to ditch the elevator concept completely, and a way to cover up your desktop between loads. I'm including my own version of both in his video rather than using his code. First, let me briefly go over the concept of the swapper system. I've did a video about this before. Now, right out of the box, HyperSpin allows you to have a number of wheels, each with a bunch of games. So you can have a wheel for arcade classics, a wheel for fighting games, a wheel for racing games, and so on. What you're seeing on the screen is actually my first HyperSpin setup from a year ago, and wow was it a mess. Just wheel after wheel after wheel. But, I mean, HyperSpin forces you to use this totally flat structure, unless you want to use its weird genre filtering system, which is clunky and annoying. It's not really friendly for folks who are just walking up to your cabinet during a party, for instance, to play some games. They have to wade through all of these menus, and then wade through the silly genre system just to find the one thing that they're looking for. Now, what I really wanted was something a bit more like this, a 2-level nested HyperSpin setup. At the top level, the main menu would present you with arcade games, console games, all in a very general sense. Only after you pick one of these groups does it break things down into subgroups. So let's say you wanted to play Super Mario Bros. You'd start at the main menu, pick console games, then pick Nintendo games, then pick Mario. By making it 2 levels deep instead of 1, we don't swamp people with choices to scroll through. But the problem is that my original method of doing this, the swapper system, required this silly elevator which let you switch between floors. It's cute, but it's still clunky because you need to go back in and out of the menu for the elevator every time you want a different game. Wouldn't it be better just hit the exit button on HyperSpin and have it contextually know to go back 1 level in the tree? No extra menu items, no genre filters, no muss, no fuss. Now, here's the new and improved swapper system in action. This time, users cleanly move forward and backward through HyperSpin using the same buttons that they use to launch games. No elevator, no obtuse instructions required. The system just intelligently relaunches HyperSpin whenever you move from the top level to a sublevel, or from a sublevel back to the top level. The user never even sees it relaunch thanks to my splash screen. Not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, so how do you set all of this up? I covered a lot of it in my other HyperSpin video, but I'm going to try to do it again from the start and do it better this time. Now, this is assuming your HyperSpin is installed on c:\emulation\hyperspin like mine, so anywhere you see that directory in my notes, just change it to wherever you've put HyperSpin. This is also assuming you know how to set up HyperSpin wheels in general. If you don't know how to add an emulator to the system, I'm not going to be helping you with that. You've got to find a tutorial somewhere else. Okay, first, let's set up each individual sublevel. A sublevel is a general grouping of related wheels, like, say, all of your console game emulators, all of your PC games, all of your arcade games. Let's use consoles as an example. So in your console wheel, you'd make sub-wheels for Nintendo, for Genesis, for PlayStation, whatever. Once you've got everything the way you want it, change the settings in HyperHQ as I've shown below. This will make it so that when you quit HyperSpin while you're in the console games, it backs up to the top level menu instead of just shutting down your computer. Lastly, make copies of the settings.ini file and the main menu.xml file as detailed below. Replace level name with something like consoles. These are the copies of the files that the swapper system will use when you switch to your console's level. I'm going to pause here so you can take all that in. Okay, let's continue. Okay, next you're going to need to set up your top level. This will consist of a series of launchers that activate the sublevels. You can mix and match, so if you want to toss in some emulator wheels here too alongside those launchers, you go right ahead. To make a menu item that launches one of these sublevels, use the main menu wizard in HyperHQ as if you were setting up a PC game. I've got the settings you need highlighted here on the left. Add one of these for each sublevel, like I said, like arcade, consoles, PC, however you want to arrange it. Next, change the overall startup and exit options to match the ones highlighted on the right. Since this is your top level, you'll probably want your computer to shut down once somebody exits HyperSpin while they're sitting here. Lastly, copy the INI and XML files. Name them settings-top.ini and top.xml. This way, the swapper script will swap to the top level when activated by the sublevels. This lets you go back and forth, back and forth. The final step is to create the swapper.exe file itself. You need to make sure you have AutoHotkey installed. If you have just HyperSpin installed, it'll run AutoHotkey scripts, but it's not the same thing as having the original AutoHotkey tool suite installed. You can get a copy of it off of AutoHotkey.com. It includes a compiler that turns AHK files into EXEs. Open up swapper.ahk in Notepad, and then edit it to change the location of hyperspin.exe and make any other tweaks that you want. You can comment out the splash image stuff at the top if you don't want to use a splash image while it's loading. When you're done, save your work, then right-click on the swapper.ahk file and pick Compile. And that's it, hopefully. Your HyperSpin should now be capable of swapping in and out of sublevels. Okay, so the problem with this new updated swapper method is it's complicated. It's very technical and involves a lot of setup on your end, and frankly, I'll admit I'm lousy at explaining it. But once it's up and running, you're good to go, and your friends will thank you for making them jump through less fiery hoops of death to get to their favorite games. So I'd say it's worth the effort. I'm going to include copies of all the relevant files in the description below this video, but it's up to you to adapt them to your specific HyperSpin setup. Create your own wheels, your own INI and XML files, edit the swapper script, get everything ready to go for your needs before recompiling it and running with it. It's not going to work just right out of the box. Now, if you're looking for something that works just right out of the box, you might want to look into buying a pre-configured HyperSpin hard drive or even complete arcade system. A lot of folks sell these, and they do the heavy lifting for you in terms of configuring a complete emulation experience. Now, personally, in my view only, I'm not really into the pre-configured systems. There's just too much legal gray area. Purchasing game ROMs outright from someone else is pretty sketchy. But many sellers offer legal ROMs that they've bought the rights to. So if you really want to go with a pre-configured HyperSpin system, just shop around and avoid the shadier dealers. I'll admit I'm pretty old school about all of this. If a thing is worth doing, it's worth doing right by myself. I want to roll up my sleeves and just get in there, editing, tweaking, tuning, making it sing. I mean, that's half the fun for me, and if you're the same way, well, here's a pile of code that you can play around in. Share and enjoy. It's all open source and free, so you do what you want with it and pay it forward by sharing your creations. The more collaborative knowledge that we can build up within the arcade community, the better. I've also been making a bunch of updates to my PC game cabinet support spreadsheet. Again, link in the description below. I've changed the columns a bit from the original video release. It should read better now. With this version, having yes across the board in every column is a good thing. A bunch of new games were added to this sheet, and old ones have been updated based on patches. For instance, Castle Crashers dropped a bit because AutoHotkey no longer seems to work with it, and Duck Game no longer directly launches from its exe file. As of September 2016, the only games with perfect scores in every category are Crazy Taxi, The Pinball Arcade, Race the Sun, and Towerfall. These games have no issues with key rebinding, no launcher problems, and they have great 4x3 monitor support. Now again, this isn't a review of the quality of the game, it's just a review of how well it'll run on an arcade cabinet. And on the flip side of that, we have the games that just are not going to work well on an arcade cabinet at all, which I felt I need to warn people away from. Dungeon Fighter Online, which is a free-to-play arcade brawler, actually thinks that AutoHotkey is a cheating program and it'll refuse to run if you've got it installed. Mortal Kombat 10, despite the upcoming PC improvements, is still a hot mess when it comes to keyboard support. And despite being a revival of a classic arcade title, 2014's Gauntlet for PC is just unplayable because it's really designed to be an analog twin-stick shooter. I should have more entries on this spreadsheet after the next Steam sale, so keep an eye on it. And if any of you have any information to contribute, drop me an email. My goal is to keep this page up to date for many years to come. Modern games tend to rely heavily on having an Xbox 360-style game controller. As a result, they play pretty badly on the flat panel of joystick buttons that we've got on our cabinets. In fact, many of them even suck on a controller, using chording or button combos to handle obscure functions. The cartoon displayed now from Penny Arcade being not too far removed from reality. But one of the major goals of my arcade project was to make it friendly for everybody to just walk up and play. If they're lost and confused about what button does what, that's hardly friendly. Since all of my buttons are featureless and black, that means you've got 8 identical buttons nested in a little group to work with. So how do you help a player in that situation? Well, before now I was using a pop-up window right before the game launches that displays the controls, but then you push a button and it goes away, and out of sight, out of mind. People can easily forget the controls if they only get to look at them for a few seconds before the game starts, especially on like a modern indie PC game that's expecting a 360-style controller. I also considered taking some of those, light-up LED buttons and reworking my control panel, just like light the buttons that are appropriate to the game, but that's overkill and gaudy, and there had to be a better way. So my solution, and I'll admit this is kind of insane, is to add a secondary monitor onto my PC connected by HDMI exclusively to display controls. I bought a little 7-inch Raspberry Pi monitor off of Amazon for this purpose. It's only like 1000 pixels by 600 pixels, but that's plenty for a simple control display. And to display that image, I'm using a real hack job of an AutoHotkey script, which is paired with an image display program called ifranView. I'm showing the script on here, and I'm going to include it in the description below, but I seriously doubt any other cabinet owners are going to go this route, and I'm not going to offer a step-by-step guide. It requires this cockamamie configuration of software and hardware. There's no way I could make setting this thing up user-friendly. But if you want to use this script, hey, more power to you. Good luck. And despite being built on the back of dirty hacks, I think the results speak for themselves. It keeps this nice, clean, ongoing display of the controls in front of the player, and for games that are simple enough not to need a control display, I can show arcade artwork, like the marquees or wheel images instead. And importantly, when I'm live streaming, I can read the chat down there instead of relying on reading it on, my iPhone. Oh, speaking of live streaming, recently, I've started experimenting with live streaming on Twitch TV from my cabinet. It's a little tricky since it's using a non-standard monitor and the whole thing is on Wi-Fi, and I know that's a no-no, but it works, and it's a lot of fun, and helps me feel like I'm being productive with my playtime. It gives me an excuse to crack into games I've never played before. My goal right now is to stream every Monday and Wednesday night, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern Time Zone. I've got chat open on the second monitor so I can read and respond to you, and I do take game requests. If you want to see me flail around wildly and ineffectually at your favorite game, I'll do that for you. Some nights I might focus on like a timeless classic that I somehow overlooked, but I will try to keep it fresh with new games each time. I may actually stream other nights too, or I might stream my novel writing, or, well, who knows? I'm just getting started with this stuff. We'll see where we go from here. And that's everything. Thanks for watching this update video. Now, this is by no means the final form of my arcade cabinet. I've been considering a new control panel, adding a webcam, all sorts of feature creep. But meanwhile, check me out on Twitch, and if you're looking for some great science fiction novels that you can read for free, check out my website at stefangagni.com. Right now, I'm working on the last book of the Floating Point trilogy, which is a cyberpunk epic about artificial intelligences mimicking human society. I hope to see you later.